This is really starting to grind me down.
Hey YouTube guys and gals, it's a beautiful day but windy on the wet coast. I'm back working on Olive, the 2-ton tent, and I'm going to work on a few things I've got on my to-do list. The first thing I'm going to do is get back to finishing the seatbelt installation. I sort of left it hanging there. The van isn't drivable right now, obviously, but I'm just going to mount that onto that pillar. Do the same thing on the passenger side. I've bought these grade 8.8 half-inch bolts and nuts, and that's what I'm going to use to mount the seatbelt retracting mechanism to the vertical pillars. I guess they'd be a B pillar in a vehicle, and that should be nice and secure. But the first thing I've got to do, after I spent all that time installing the seats, is to uninstall the seats so I can get my drill in there and get the holes drilled for the seatbelt bolts and nuts. Oh well. Sometimes you gotta redo things. Just had to run down to Home Hardware, grab myself some washers and some lock washers, mounting hardware for the seat belts. I'm going to use some of them as spacers, and some of them are going to be used to beef up the attachment to the B pillar. So I've got a 1/2-inch hole drilled here that the seatbelt retractable mechanism will mount to. The problem I have right now though is these bolts that I've bought are about a 1/2 inch too long, about the thickness of that nut on the end there. So I just have to cut them down a size, dress them up a little bit, and then it's going to go in and through, and you'll see in a moment.
So at this point I realized I didn't have much room to get a wrench in behind there, so I just grabbed a crowbar and pinned the head of the bolt against the B pillar, and that allowed me to get the nut torqued down as much as it needed to be. That'll do nice, just like that. Now the proof is in the pudding. Do the seatbelts work? Definitely lock up easily, so gotta be gentle. Oh yeah, that's great.
Might sit just a tiny bit high on my shoulder, but I know that's all right. It's because I'm so short. All right, so that worked great. I am now going to do the same treatment on the passenger side. I'm not going to put the passenger seat in because I have plans to put a diesel heater in that spot. So that'll be another video. On to the next task. And my next task on my short little list for this video is to remove this. That's the starter motor. I'm going to replace it with a new one. There's nothing wrong with the old one. It still works fine, but I don't know how old it is and I don't know what condition it's in. It does work, but the last thing I want is to have the starter fail when I'm in the middle of nowhere with a van. So I'm going to put a new one in. It's got a warranty. It's brand new. It's not a reman, so I should get lots and lots of life out of it. So first thing I'm going to do, disconnect the battery, because you always do that when working on electricals, and put some gloves on because this thing is pretty greasy and gross and disgusting. The tools you need for this are pretty straightforward. You're going to need like a 5/8 socket or a 5/8 box end wrench, a 1/2-inch wrench or 1/2-inch socket. That's going to be for the connector that goes on the solenoid. And I think this is an 11/32 socket. That's for the other connector on the solenoid. Pretty common stuff.
I've disconnected the two nuts at the top, which held the electrical wires to the terminals on the solenoid. And now I'm getting my wrench in there as best as I can to loosen the top bolt and the bottom nut, and then work them loose so I can just pull the starter right out.
So you can definitely tell that one is a lot more compact than the other. I bought a smaller, higher torque starter motor. It does look at some point like this old starter motor isn't OEM. I'm not sure if Bosch was the original equipment for these vans. So maybe at some point in the past this van had the starter replaced. But this is the new one. It's a lot smaller. It's a lot lighter. And also, these are metric. So that's going to be a 12 mil. That's going to be an 8 mil. I've got those sockets out already. So time to reverse the procedure. Oh, that doesn't look right. Well, it's going to cost me more money to ship this back for an exchange than the starter itself. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to get the die grinder on the point that's hitting. I think the case of the starter's thick enough that I could probably get maybe, I don't know, almost 1/4 inch of clearance with the grinder here. I'm going to give it a shot. If that doesn't work, well, it'll be time for another new starter.
Yeah, I had to test fit this 9 times. That's 9 times crawling under the van, trying to start a fitment, pulling it back out again, coming back to the grinder. It was fun.
Yes! How's it?
All right, time for the reinstall. Putting the top bolt back in the starter, putting the bottom nut back on the stud that's in the transmission, and tightening it all up.
Little one is too small with the terminal on there, so I have to drill that out. Well, shit. So I'm going to have to put a new ring terminal on that one. 30-year-old brittle metal. You really expect these things on old vehicles, right? Alright, so I am going to cut this off. I am going to strip this little bit of wire here, put this pigtail on it, put some shrink wrap on it to make it nice and watertight. I'm going to use solder for the connection because I do not want this to come loose, nor do I want electrical issues. So first, the wire. Well, there's no metal in there, but let's see what happens. I don't think I can even get it. Alright, don't worry about that later. Oh, that's a heavy gauge wire. Okay, I'm going to need Plan B. I'm going to desolder this joint and slip that ring terminal right on there and solder that.
These dollar store lighters are so handy.
Got it all in there but for one wire. I'll take that as well. I'm going to try and use this to stop it from falling back down. Solder it. I don't even need the shrink wrap because this is going right on the end of the insulated wire. Alright, I hope this wire is clean enough to accept the solder. Let's see, I guess. It's working. Try and get some in on the back. I think that's got her. Get back under the van and see if the starter motors are going to work.
Now I can reattach the electrical connections to the starter solenoid. Well, I'm in the driver's seat again.
Ready to find out whether this has been an exercise in futility or not. Here goes. Yeah, it's all right. Well, this starter motor nearly beat me, but with a bit of judicious grinding with the grinder, I managed to create enough relief and remove the interference between the body of the starter motor and the engine itself. So it seems to work fine. Sounds good when I start it. It's a little bit noisy on the overrun. If I don't get off the key right away, that may change as the starter breaks in, but I'm going to keep the old starter with me on hand as a spare part, just in case. It does still work. Anyway, I am done for today. I am done for this video. If you did enjoy this video, why not hit the like button? If you like what I'm doing with the channel, why not subscribe? Anyways, regardless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.